Doom Garden by Benjamin Wheeler. Listen, I don't talk. Sometimes, sure, I grunt in pain or in pleasure. How else can I express enjoyment of Cookie's special sausages? How does that angel on earth mix her meats with such balance, such graceful sprinkling of black pepper? I'd wade through an army of demons with only a chainsaw for another bite of her sausages. Just spill an entire ocean of blood. I can't overstate enough how I feel about her processed proteins. With her delicate, knife-skilled hands, she brings me the last of the lunch special, and we share a sausage under the wooden rose arches. It was a good day, satisfying to my heart and stomach equally. I could not complain, nor did I want to. I appreciated the calm, and I appreciated Cookie, whether she brought me cooked meats or not. I don't know what world Cookie came from, and honestly, I can't really describe what was so different about mine compared to this one. It's called Terra, or, vulgarly, Earth. The only difference I can figure is that I come from a world where magic wasn't real. I think Cookie came from a world with magic, because she's more comfortable around the students than I am. I can't stand the little buggers. Look at them, walking around, waving magic wands like they won't accidentally turn their heads into stumps of wood with a dumb look carved into their faces. No respect on these children. Don't they know how much work I've put into these neat rows, these strong groves and the burgeoning verge? What are those morons waving over my petunias? Cookie and I charge those black poncho-clad knuckleheads. They run off, but I recognize one of them. Gryffindor. Gryffindor! I don't know why that little son of a matchstick seller with tuberculosis has such an obsession with my plants. That brown-haired twerp has given my petunias a spell. They're shimmering. Never a good sign. Cookie decides she'll get one of the wizard professors. Probably will help dispel Gryffindor's curse, but the petunias are probably a lost cause. I went to the shed, a nice wooden thing with a bed, tools, and my dancing dresser, courtesy of Gryffindor. I took out the shovel and checked around back for a replacement flowering plant pot. Now, I won't bore you with the grand scheme of the quad. It's a quad. 4 passable brick-and-mortar buildings marked north, south, east, and west. A bronze statue of the wizard founder, Warren G. Harding, dominates the center, and paths radiate from it like the rays of the sun. Yes, for those asking, did anyone really think a man that boring wouldn't have some secret? The paths are magically enchanted to never let weeds flourish, so I spend most of my time polishing Warren's bald pate and caring for the flower beds, trees, and ambulatory benches. Yesterday, I fed the benches with a chlorophyll spray. My old man had some funky ideas about tree feng shui, but I'm a man of taste. I used planted saplings of small, flowering trees at the center, mostly cherries, then surrounded them with flower beds, petunias, marigolds, and orchids, along with various types of those tall flowers with the really fancy heads. That dominates the first third. The horticulturalist wizard was psychic, and the gaps in my flower name knowledge drives him batty. That doesn't stop him from enjoying my islands of flowering color. I then added taller trees, maples, apples, and birches and the like, with bright hues in fall. That is the middle third. By magic I had them stunted, so that they never grew higher than the last third. Under these, I gave smaller, more low-ground species space. More marigolds, strawberries, and various smaller single-stem plants. They were the kings there. I phased them out toward the last third, allowing nature to prosper and choke as she pleased. On the last third, I went for thick oak, tall elms, and a ring of sharp pines. I allowed vines to grow rampant, only keeping them away from the paths and tangling the ambulatory benches. The dark green vines in the general dark view give a great effect of coming from the wilds into the cultured world of men. Do the students appreciate it? No. But the professors appreciate it, and they pay me. As I rooted for the right shade, I heard shouts of panic. Gryffindor's spell had come to fruition. A pox on him and whatever house had birthed him. As one certainly imagined, the uncreative bastard just gave it a carnivorous appetite, and a magical growth hormone that corporations would sacrifice untold orphans to all the demons of hell to obtain. In the 3 minutes it took me to walk around the back of my shed, his spell had done its work. Now, purple and black flowers waved around in the breeze, trying to suck nutrients from the ambulatory benches, other plants, and several, presumably, human beings. The petals wrapped around the victim with an unflower-like strength. It whipped the flailing bodies around. It was only a matter of time before it strangled or digested the two of them. I chopped at the first tendril reaching out to me, cutting through them with the blade of the shovel. The rest of the mass quivered and reared up. Now, both Cookie and the wizard were completely englobed by delicate-looking flower buds. 2 pairs of feet stuck out the topmost stem and kicked with the energy of desperation. Mentally, I reassured them that I was coming, and that I will save them. Thorny whips lashed out at me, seeking to corrupt my flesh with poisons. Its will, if you could call it that, desired nothing more than to turn me into nutrient slurry, to devour me whole, like Cookie and the wizard. I grunted and swung again, this time decapitating the flowerhead seeking me. The thing was blind, and I charged through the pumping ichor, grabbing onto a tree it had absorbed, and used it to guide my momentum up and over a wall of thorns that had thrown up to catch me. I grunted. The roots, now animate, tore up the sod around it. I leaped as a mass tried to trip me. I landed on the next root and twisted my body until I grabbed another branch. This I used to steady myself for the next jump onto one of the main stems. I raised the shovel over my head and breathed in. With a mighty growl reverberating in my chest, I planted the blade of the shovel again and again into the green pulsing flesh. The magically mutated petunia spasmed and raged, the stalks merging together. I had planned this. I separated the head of my stalk and planted my foot on the wound. With a rumble, I leaped up. Above, one of the flowers threw itself in front of my flight and opened its glorious royal scarlet petals. I brought down my axe-like shovel onto its head, but the angle was wrong, and I couldn't pierce the flesh. I was nearly proud of its resilience. It was growing up so fast. The petals closed around me, and the beastly plant swallowed me, wrapping me with its petals. The juices that pumped into my cellulite-based cell were acidic and sweet. My eyes grew heavy, soporific. With a curse, I bit my tongue and reached for my special gardening knife in my boot. What I wouldn't give for my chainsaw right now. The petals constricted me, but I fought past them, putting my shoulder into it, and putting my boots out at the strangest angles I could hold. My eyes closed for a single second. My anger flared. I wouldn't die here. I had faced the armies of hell and man. I had slaughtered thousands. I would not end my violent career with a gardening accident before I turned 80. I gripped my knife. The point pierced the petals, and I ripped myself out of the acid and sopor prison. I cannot make the sounds, but I can make the motions of screaming. I struck again and again at the stomach head of the plant monster, until I was no longer entombed. The flower head had not seen fit to lower me closer to the ground. I could see the legs of Cookie and the wizard kicking, weakly now. I crashed into the main stem and planted my knife into the flesh. There were growths, irregularly placed along the stem, and they and my knife became my ladder to the top. The rustling thing under me whipped me with the thorny root, drawing blood. I gripped my teeth and pulled myself up one more time. I could grab the lower end of the flower, the ridges connecting the petals to the green stem. I pulled myself up until I found the thinnest part of the head, the thin connective flesh at the bulb's base. My blade cut through, snapping the tendons, and plunging my arm deep into the steaming green blood and cutting away the central spine of the blighted thing. The central head cracked and bent, falling to the ground and taking me with it. This massive head was purple, with yellow lines running all over it. Red streaks of blood passing through the pulsing yellow veins. I finished my grisly work on the stem and used my knife to tear open the flower's stomach. I pulled Cookie, then the wizard, the psychic horticulturalist, from the maw. Cookie shivered and clung to me as I brushed her hair, and pulled roots from the pits that the stomach acid had eaten out of her skin. The wizard was in a similar state, but he seemed excited more than worried. Wizards. My, what a delightful exercise in large blooming life transmutation. Really, bang-up job. Full marks, what? I and Cookie stared at him. I'm pulling Gryffindor from both of your heads. What a young scamp. Honestly, I love it when someone with as much potential as Gryffindor really struts his stuff. The wizard, Porticello Brimmer, stood up and stretched, brushing off the dying roots. His grin stretched so far I could count his teeth. I believe this is when he read my murderous intentions. I was working my way through the benefits of radical chainsaw amputation at the navel. Age of Gryffindor be damned. Of course, he did stick around and put down his creation, and he did damage school property. Not that the two of you are school property. Oh, no. Porticello pulled his wand, a long, unnaturally straight sprig of holly, and waved it. I'll bring it all back to normal in a jiffy. I can accelerate or reverse organics through time, after all. I'll talk to the board, and we'll punish Gryffindor. The lad needs to know the value of hard labor. Oh, yes. Glitter and lightning shot out the tip of the wand and engulfed the monstrous flower. Cookie and I watched the flowers shrivel and shrink into themselves until they became their original size and shape. The sparkles dissipated, and I could see the flowers were once again some kind of normal, if anemic-looking. Other professors and students were coming in to help, and the nurse soon had me and Cookie back in fighting trim. Except for Cookie's mind, which was a little bit more skittish than it had been before. I spent my lunches in the cafeteria for a while, in some of the spots with no windows, facing my gardening masterpiece. In the week ahead, Gryffindor was sentenced to spend a month in my care. The boy complained constantly, and immediately broke out in blisters. Had this puberty reject never worked with his hands before? I didn't want his parents to hear about me abusing him or something, so I eased up, just a little. Between the two of us, we repaired all the damage his spell had done, from the damaged plants to the torn-up paths and digested ambulatory benches. Near our last day together, I realized that I tolerated, nay, felt the barest hint of affection for Gryffindor. I didn't want to Cuisinart him anymore. You're not going to like this, but I was wondering if I could get out an hour early. The scamp. I shook my head. But we're going to be experimenting with portals today. The moon is in the right phase, and the stars are in a most fortunate set of alignments with Mars and Venus. He rambled on and on about it, but I didn't listen to him. Instead, I just tossed him a shovel, and between the two of us we shifted a composting pile from one side to another. Nothing worse than unflipped compost. We finished our day's work, and I let Gryffindor go. I enjoyed another of Cookie's delicious cured meat sets, and set to a night of relaxing after a hard day's work. I had just tucked myself into bed, after seeing Cookie to her home, when I heard a bang and a roar. The sky glowed a deep dark orange, and I smelt sulfur. Someone opened up a hell portal. I should have expected this. I tore myself out of bed, and opened up my dancing dresser's bottom drawer after I beat it into submission. Inside, familiar armor waited for me. I put it on, piece by piece. Thick metal comforted my chest, arms, legs, and head. The helmet booted up, showing me my ammo reserves, my body's health, and the armor's integrity. I enjoyed the feel of it. Against the forces of hell, it was little more than a paper wall, but it was better than bare skin and toned muscles. I pulled out my shotgun and chainsaw. One of my requirements, in writing, was that I would have both of them enchanted, to never need ammo or fuel. Of course, the shotgun was frivolous, but only until now. A small demon, bipedal and vicious, screamed as it saw me. The thing leaped up and went for my face. I blasted it with my shotgun. The thing's chest blew apart, spreading burning blood across my visor and armor. The helmet cleaned itself, and I grunted. Satisfaction is everything working together perfectly, the first time. Another of those screaming little things leaped from the tree branches. Another shotgun shell sent it back to where it came from. I wonder if demon blood, bone, and brain matter would be good for the plants. It really depended on the ammonia content. See, ammonia is a fairly decent fertilizer, in the right conditions. Now sulfur. Probably too much sulfur. I would have to treat the soil something fierce after this. A screaming ape, with 3 arms and spikes for legs, was charging a group of terrified students running for the statue of Warren G. Harding. I had no idea why they wanted comfort in that bald pate. I whipped out my chainsaw and ran on an intercept angle. I caught it in the midsection and let its own momentum saw it in half. I'm not gonna lie, My job site satisfaction ran at an all-time high in that moment. The thing was still breathing, so I blasted it in its screaming ape face. I looked over the students I saved and saw a familiar face. Griffinwald. I didn't say it, but I did point very accusingly. "It wasn't me this time," the boy shouted back. "Listen, there was some dude with a cult robe and—" An imp threw a fireball at an ambulatory bench. I cut off Griffinwald's excuses with a shotgun shell. Several imps jumped out of a window and down onto the quad. Flames burst from their hands in our direction. Griffinwald pulled out his wand, and a shield protected us from the monster's fire attacks. "One of the professors told me that the Harding statue can protect the campus. I have the animation spell." He stood up. I liked the glimmer in his eye. I pointed at the statue, and the group ran for it. Something large, spike-filled and quite angry, charged us from behind. When Griffinwald turned, I spun him around and pushed him at the statue. The spike demon leaped all the distance between the two of us, and I got a quick look at its slavering jaws that had just the right amount of teeth for a demon. It spent time roaring at me, and I reached down its throat and grabbed its tongue. I jammed my foot into where its nose would be and ripped the tentacled tongue out of its head. It screamed at a far higher pitch than it had been roaring at before. I stabbed the shotgun into the roof of its mouth and fired. More ammonia-filled brain matter splattered my flower beds. At least the fires hadn't taken to the trees yet. I stalked the outermost circle, the oak groves. I felt, rather than heard, the spells Griffinwald lavished on the Warren G. Harding statue. Principal Vandermander was throwing lightning from the roof of the Metaphysical Sciences wing. A large wyvern battled a gas bag that projectile-vomited lava. The professors were taking care of themselves and any students they could find. It was a matter of time. "Less government in business, and more business in government," the bronze statue boomed. "And business is sending demons back to hell." It leaped up and landed on the gas bag in a titanic elbow drop. The wyvern flew off to rip the eye out of a floating, flaming cyclops head. A matter of minutes, perhaps. "You're the only depression my election is leaving." I set my sights on the cafeteria, and Cookie. She was quick with her knives, but chuck roast isn't exactly demonic sinew. It's a fighting spirit thing. Artists, cooks or what have you, aren't necessarily warriors at heart. A demon larger than any man, and a head like a mace, burst out of a hedgerow. A punch sent me flying over the trees. My shotgun pellets bounced off its bone dome. My head spun as I crashed through branches and through a wooden archway. I got back in time for a shoulder check that sent me through the cafeteria's double doors. God must be watching out for me. I could have thanked the demon, but it would have wasted breath. I rolled over and slashed a grasping hand with my chainsaw. I gripped the int's head and twisted, snapping its neck. Macehead charged me through the broken glass. I shot out its right kneecap with a shotgun. It stumbled, and I kneed its forehead. It didn't blink, but that was more because of my fingers than its eyes. I twisted the head over. Its neck was more a mountain of shoulder muscles than a proper vertebrae. It clawed at my armor, but it didn't have the angle or the leverage. I gripped its skull through the eyes as hard as I could, and ripped the mace skull plate from its position. I stomped its brains out. I heard Cookie scream. It was shrill and terrified. I saw an imp run up the stairs to the cafeteria's main room from one of the classrooms, following her scream. I punted it into a wall and punched the hell lights out of it. I kicked open the door to the kitchen and saw Cookie stabbing another imp in its narrow chest. What a way to ruin her best knife. I grabbed her hands and turned her around. Cookie tried to stab me, but it didn't get past the chest plate. A for effort. I had to give credit for her stabbing arm. She opened her eyes and saw me, and began to cry. I gave her a one-armed hug, keeping my shotgun in one hand, always pointed at the most likely place of attack. I could hear Cookie's heart pump wildly. It calmed, but it never lost that pounding quality. It energized me. A nightmare with fires floated up to the second-floor bay windows. We were in the middle of the dining room, and the tables were bolted to the floor. I fired my shotgun at it. It laughed with a sound like glass grinding on metal, and burned the pellets out of the air. A blue fire burned in its mouth, and I pushed myself in front of Cookie and pumped my shotgun. The fundamental trouble with wizards is that they have gotten too far away from Almighty God. Warren G. Harding's statue drop-kicked the blue flame demon and landed on the gravel path in my garden. The energies gathered in the demon exploded, and Cookie and I saw Warren walk out of the flames, unscathed. Thanks to the statue, we were unmolested as we gathered at the center plinth, where he used to stand. Professor Porticello Brimmer had survived, along with Griffinwald and the girl clinging on his arm. I gave him a respectful nod when we made eye contact. Professor Vanamander was missing an arm, but he stood tall. His lightning blue hair, a sign of overusing his magical abilities, shimmered in the dusk. His eyes still blazed with fury and power, so I didn't fear for him.
Oh, listen, the portal is still open, but I can close it. We need to get to the theater, kill whoever is keeping the portal open, and seal it for good.
He pointed at me, Porticello, and a few of the other professors.
We're going in a group.
He slapped my arm.
Blaskowitz, you're going to be on point. Porticello, the rear. Here's some ceiling fetishes.
He handed out some little statues.
If all else fails, slap it on the air in front of the portal, and it should close, at least temporarily. I've already sent my familiar to the Witch Academy. They'll succeed if we fail.
He signaled me when the rest were ready. I walked forward. Warren G. Harding was beating one of the maceheads to death with his bare hands, the hard way. The statue turned to me without stopping its tasks.
I couldn't catch a ball or any of that stuff. I could only do what required brute stupidity.
The demons had thinned out since the statue had begun his work. We reached the theater's entrance. While the majority of the architecture on campus was plain and serviceable brick, the theater was Greco-Roman inspired. Columns splattered with blood and cooling lava reached from the foundation to the lintel. The doors, now ripped from their hinges, had been cleverly inset into the walls, so that the columns appeared both freestanding and a part of the wall. Windows, glass and metal, studded the in-betweens of the stone pillars. Across the top, just under the roof, a quote.
Proceed with the full realization that no spell of man can repeal the laws of nature.
Harding, probably.
Blaskowitz.
Vanamander urged me into the building. I stepped into the half-light. The setting sun was behind us, so I had a little light left to me. Bone fragments, broken wands, and paper crunched under my feet. A mosaic of Narcissus stretched from the entrance to the stairs. Echo's face was marred by an ice bolt jammed into the floor. Narcissus was untouched.
Up the stairs,
Vanamander whispered. The carpet smoldered and I could see chairs on fire, facing the main stage. No want for light, at least. I stuck my head past the brass doors to the theater and pulled back instantly. An imp with claws longer than its head fell where my skull had been a mere second ago. I blasted its brains out with a shotgun blast. I charged and slammed my chainsaw into the brainstem of another imp. I heard Vanamander fire lightning into something on one of the balconies, and Porticello distort as he manipulated the time of something flying over our head. I could see the orange portal now. The stage under it had been set for some kind of German Faustian tragedy. A man stood in front on the stage in a red robe, and probably appreciated the decorations. I trusted the wizards could handle themselves, and walked towards him. He chanted something, but it meant nothing to me. Demonic gibberish. My shotgun didn't have the reach, and so I stepped closer.
I was always in love with fire,
the man intoned, as if someone cared.
It always felt like power.
A tendril of red light hit the chest of the demon worshipper. He convulsed. The energies made him grow. I couldn't tell what skin color he used to have, but now it was blood red. His muscles and bones snapped and bent as he stood 15 feet tall. What clothes he had left ripped off of him as if it could no longer bear the strain. Horns stuck out of his forehead, and his teeth became pointed and sharp. Yellow drool dripped from his mouth. It moved fast, and before I could react, it stepped forward and kicked me in the chest. My armor took the blow, but I hit the balcony and fell down onto the broken theater chairs. My breath left me, and I got to one knee. I had to stumble forward until I found my feet. Vanamander plied the chest and face of the demonic beast with lightning. It laughed and reached for the one-armed principal. Porticello hit himself with a glow from his wand, and grabbed Vanamander and pulled him out of the way, quick as thought. One of the other wizards was not so lucky. The fist grabbed him and squeezed him like an orange. I charged forward, jamming the chainsaw into the cultist demon's wrist. I saw his knees rise up for another kick and jammed the shotgun onto its knee. I fired, blowing the kneecap from it with a powerful blast. It roared and collapsed onto its bad knee. The bones in its giant red hand deflected the chainsaw down onto the blood-soaked floor. The wounded hand battered me back, nearly knocking me down. The horns on its head stabbed towards me and sought to gut me. I danced away, ignoring my armor's integrity warnings. Jaws spread wide like the hood of a cobra. Its maw detached from its skull and shot towards me, biting in thin air. I saw my chance, and the chainsaw found the roof of its mouth. The mandibles closed around it once again, but the chainsaw wasn't deep enough to reach its brain. It struggled with the vicious cutting gardening tool, but couldn't remove it. Its hands couldn't reach into its mouth, even as its own claws shred its cheeks. I ran up, and, using its good knee as a stepping ladder, I punched its chin. It screamed louder. I struck it again and again, each time pushing the chainsaw deeper into its head. It fell backwards, spasming. I didn't stop striking until it ceased twitching. In the corner of my eye, I saw the surviving wizards slap their fetishes on the portal, collapsing it to a pinpoint, and then nothing. I gasped, and every part of my body hurt. If I was being honest, I could have killed more demons with a smile on my face. But then it would put the students, civilians, and worse, Cookie in my gardens, at risk. I'd take this victory gladly. Porticello was helping Vandamander up the stairs to me. The demons' bodies, now no longer powered by Hell's energies, started to waste away, leaving bloodstains and fires burning where their magic played havoc. Warren G. Harding had returned to his plinth, signaling the all-clear. Cookie and some of the other non-combatants, once we returned, celebrated by gathering up all the unruined food they could find. Cookie fed me some of her special sausages herself. Before emergency forces took us away to the hospitals and home, Vandamander put his last hand on my shoulder.
Good job, Blazkowicz. I'll get you a raise.
Cookie sausages, demonic invasion, chainsaw practice, seeing Griffinwald become a man, getting to rebuild a garden, and a raise? This day could not get better.